This is the story of ancient Egypt, a civilization that feels both familiar and distant, both known and deeply mysterious. When most people imagine Egypt, they see pyramids rising above golden sand, temples filled with shadows, statues carved into mountainsides, and treasures buried in forgotten chambers. But Egypt is more than that, much more. It is a world shaped by time, shaped by the land, and shaped by the people who lived with purpose, discipline, and imagination. Today, we step into that world not to chase legends, but to understand the truth behind a civilization that still captures the human heart. The story begins with the Nile River, the lifeline of Egypt. Without the Nile, the land would have been only desert. With the Nile, it became a place where life could grow, where cities could rise, and where knowledge could flourish. Each year, the river flooded, leaving behind rich soil that fed the entire population. The people learned how to use the rhythm of water, how to work with the seasons, and how to survive in a place where every choice mattered. The Nile shaped Egypt's identity more than any king or monument ever could. But life in ancient Egypt was not simple. The desert surrounded them with heat, dryness, and silence. Crops depended on the flooding season. Travel required skill and planning. Wild animals, harsh weather, and unpredictable forces tested their strength. And yet, Egypt thrived, not because it was easy, but because the people learned how to build, organize, and adapt. They created a society that understood that survival came from cooperation, knowledge, and respect for the world around them. Egyptians were builders, and their buildings still stand thousands of years later. They carved stone with patience, aligned structures with stars, and created architecture that was both beautiful and meaningful. Temples were not only places of worship, they were symbols of power, stability, and connection to the divine. Tombs were not only burial places, they were homes for the soul's journey into the afterlife. Every design had purpose, every line had meaning. Every stone was part of a much larger story. But Egypt is not remembered only for the buildings. It is remembered for the people who lived there. They were farmers who worked the fields at sunrise, craftsmen who shaped stone, wood, and gold with skill passed down through generations, artists who painted walls with scenes of daily life and dreams of eternity, traders who traveled by boat to distant lands, families who built homes along the river and taught their children the values of discipline, respect, and kindness. Their world was full of structure and rhythm, built on cooperation and community. Egyptian society was surprisingly advanced. They studied medicine and understood how to treat wounds, heal sickness, and protect the body. They created early forms of dentistry. They developed calendars more accurate than many cultures around them. They wrote with hieroglyphs, a system of symbols that carried both practical and spiritual meaning. Some symbols recorded events, others were used in sacred rituals. Through writing, the Egyptians shared stories, laws, prayers, and memories that lasted longer than the people who wrote them. Religion shaped almost every part of Egyptian life. They believed the world was filled with unseen forces, each one playing a role in creation and balance. The sun rising each morning meant the world was safe. The Nile flooding meant life would continue. The cycle of day and night, life and death, joy and loss, everything was connected to something greater. Their gods represented nature, wisdom, protection, love, justice, and transformation. These beliefs helped them find meaning in hardship and direction in daily life. The afterlife was one of the strongest parts of Egyptian culture. They believed that death was the beginning of a long journey. The soul would face challenges, be guided by gods, and eventually reach peace. Because of this belief, Egyptians prepared carefully for death. Tombs were filled with things the soul might need: food, tools, jewelry, and remembrance. These objects survived thousands of years, and today, they help us understand what the Egyptians valued most: family, tradition, protection, and eternal life. But Egypt was not only spiritual, it was also practical and connected to the world. Trade routes linked Egypt with Africa, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. Boats traveled up and down the Nile, carrying grain, gold, pottery, cloth, and animals. Foreign traders brought wood, spices, metals, perfumes, and rare stones. Through trade, Egypt learned from other cultures and shared its own knowledge in return. It became a crossroads of ideas, art, and technology. Leadership in Egypt was built on respect, responsibility, and belief. Pharaohs were seen as the bridge between the people and the gods, but they were also expected to be wise rulers. They had to protect the land, support the economy, build projects that benefited everyone, and maintain order. Good leaders helped Egypt grow, poor leaders caused decline. But through all the changes, through wars, droughts, invasions, and political struggles, the core of Egyptian culture survived. Egypt's greatness also came from its artists. Their statues, jewelry, carvings, and paintings were filled with symbols of life, protection, and transformation. Colors were chosen with meaning: blue for the sky, green for rebirth, gold for eternity. Animals like cats, falcons, and scarabs carried spiritual power. Patterns and shapes represented harmony, balance, and the endless cycle of life. Even simple, everyday objects were decorated with care. Art was life, and life was art. But even the strongest civilizations faced challenges. As time passed, enemies grew stronger. Trade routes changed. Weather patterns shifted. Internal conflicts weakened the kingdom. Other cultures rose around Egypt, bringing new beliefs and new ways of living. Slowly, Egypt transformed. It blended with outside influences. It adapted. It changed rulers. It changed languages. But its foundation stayed the same. The heart of Egypt, the spirit of its people remained. Today, Egypt's legacy is everywhere. In museums, temples, research sites, and underwater excavations, new discoveries appear each year. Archaeologists uncover tombs sealed for thousands of years. Divers find pieces of ancient ports lost beneath the sea. Statues are raised again from buried sand. Objects once touched by ancient hands are brought into the light. Each discovery adds another piece to the story of a civilization that continues to surprise the world. Many believe that countless Egyptian treasures are still hidden. Some wait beneath the deserts. Others rest underwater, where old cities sank, piece by piece, into the river or the sea. When divers explore these submerged ruins, they find broken pillars, gold jewelry, pottery, and statues lying silently under layers of sand. These discoveries remind us that Egypt was not only a land culture, it was also connected to water, trade, and movement across the world. Ancient Egypt teaches us something powerful. Greatness comes from balance. Balance between discipline and imagination, between tradition and growth, between the world we see and the world we feel inside. The Egyptians lived with intention. They respected time. They understood the importance of beauty, knowledge, and community. They built not only for themselves, but for the generations that would come after them. And because of that, they became legends. Their pyramids still stand. Their writings still speak. Their art still inspires. Their discoveries still amaze. Even now, thousands of years later, Egypt continues to shape how we understand history, culture, and human potential. In the end, the story of ancient Egypt is a story of resilience, creativity, and connection. A story written in stone, painted on walls, carved on temples, and preserved underwater. A story that invites us to look deeper, to explore further, and to remember that every ruin, every artifact, every symbol carries the echo of a world that once thrived with life and meaning. This is the story of ancient Egypt, a story of beauty, mystery, invention, and strength. A story told by ruins, treasures, and memories left in the sand and beneath the waves. A story that continues to inspire explorers, thinkers, and dreamers. A story that reminds us that what we build today can echo far into tomorrow. But even with everything we know, ancient Egypt still holds more secrets than answers. Every discovery opens another question. Every ruin leads to another story waiting to be understood. Some temples are still buried under shifting sand. Some cities were taken by floods and now rest silently underwater. And some treasures remain hidden, untouched for thousands of years, waiting for someone to find them. This mystery is part of what makes Egypt unforgettable. Explorers, archaeologists, and divers continue to search through deserts, cliffs, and underwater ruins. Some uncover statues that were once worshipped by entire cities. Others find jewelry worn by queens or tools used by workers who helped build the pyramids. Many discoveries are small: a bead, a coin, a piece of pottery, but each one adds one more detail to the story of how people lived, loved, worked, and dreamed. And while the world around Egypt has changed again and again, the past still rises to the surface. It speaks through symbols carved in stone and objects carried by the Nile. It reminds us that human creativity lasts longer than we expect, and that stories built with intention can travel across thousands of years. And so, the story of Egypt becomes a bridge between the ancient world and our own. It shows how people, no matter the time they live in, search for meaning, beauty, and purpose. The Egyptians built with their hands, but they also built with their hearts. They shaped a world that reflected their beliefs, their fears, their hopes, and their dreams. Today, when we look at their ruins or hold their artifacts, we are touching pieces of their lives. Their world may have changed, but their voice remains, carried through the sand, the stone, and the water, still speaking to us across time. In the end, ancient Egypt reminds us that nothing truly disappears. Even when cities fall or waters rise, traces of human purpose remain. Every stone, every carving, every forgotten object holds a story. And as long as we continue to search, listen, and learn, their world will never be lost. It will continue to live through us. Their legacy travels through time, reminding us that human creativity outlives every generation. Ancient Egypt continues to shine, not as a memory of the past, but as a guide for curiosity today.